Hi there, I'm Leisha Grabinski, and this is Saskatchewan. I live in Saskatoon, and I spend a lot of time in the center of the city walking and biking, especially along our gorgeous riverbank. And that's where I'm seeing firsthand just how much our community has changed in the last few years. I'm guessing you've seen it too. People sleeping in tents and cardboard boxes. Some walk around with all of their belongings in a shopping cart. And I've come across people using drugs openly right in front of me. Experts and police say that drug use often leads to crime. People steal to fuel their habit. One major grocery chain has security guards wearing body cams to help deter theft. And it's gotten so out of hand that some stores are locking their doors. You have to knock before you're let in to shop. It's not just Saskatoon. This is happening in communities across the province. So, how do we stop it? You've likely heard the saying, if you do the crime, you do the time. But our jails are overcrowded, and all too often, people come out of jail and do it again, especially if they're addicted to drugs.
In my 30s, I really spiraled heavy with crystal meth use, and I started selling drugs to support my habit, which of course got me in a lot of legal trouble. Most of my criminal activity, well, I would say all of it was related to getting money for drugs.
Saskatchewan just opened its third drug treatment court in North Battleford. The focus at these courts is rehabilitation rather than incarceration. So if you're someone who wants to lock up criminals, this might challenge your thinking. The CBC's Bonnie Allen is our guest today on the podcast to tell us about a kinder court. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Leisha.
So I understand something jumped out at you when the province opened this new drug treatment court.
That's right. Let me just set the scene for you. The grand opening happens inside the new drug court, and it's really just a courtroom at the provincial court building in North Battleford. It looks like any other courtroom with a judge's bench, prisoner's dock, a table for the lawyers, and on this day, it's full of high-ranking people, including judges and the Minister of Justice, Tim MacLeod.
This is not a slap on the wrist. This is not an easy path to follow.
He goes on to tout the achievements of the drug treatment court. He says people have found employment and housing. Parents are reunited with their children. It can help break intergenerational trauma and the cycles of addiction and, of course, crime.
But breaking cycles of addiction and crime, I mean, that's very ambitious.
It certainly is. It's what's possible, but not guaranteed. What jumped out to me was a reference to the person who's been hired to run the court. The Minister of Justice said she's a former graduate of the program, Susan Sebulsky. So I Googled her name and found just a quote from her in a government press release, but nothing more about her story. And I really wanted to learn more about her. I mean, who better to tell us what makes it successful or not, and to speak to some of the skepticism from people who say these therapeutic courts are soft on crime.
Right. So you did connect with her?
I went to North Battleford and sat down with her in her new office on cream leather couches. Susan is a 49-year-old mother of two, long brown hair, brown eyes, brightly colored tattoos on her arms and legs, and a calm, comforting manner. And she agreed to talk about her story, but not without trepidation, and there's good reason for that. She used to be a drug dealer.
I'm not going to lie. Sharing my truth and my story is still a little bit uncomfortable because, let's be real, there's a lot of judgment out there. It's so easy to look down upon people that have struggled with addiction, and especially the people that are incarcerated because of it. But we're people too, and we have families and we have loved ones.
Yeah, I can understand why she might be a bit reluctant to share her story like that. What is her story? How did she start selling drugs?
Well, let's go back almost 20 years. Susan is an active drug user, and she discovers crystal meth. And it's so powerful, so addictive, she only cares about one thing: getting money to buy more meth.
I felt like, my addiction to this powerful drug was akin to having a terminal disease. No disrespect to anyone that has struggled with that, but I just felt this sense of hopelessness and just couldn't see my way out of it. And I honestly believed for a large portion of my life that I would die an addict.
She starts racking up criminal charges, including some for drug trafficking, and she becomes caught in this vicious cycle. She gets arrested, pays her bail, does more drugs, and then violates her conditions.
Numerous breaches because, of course, I wasn't able to follow conditions because I was an addict. Half the time I didn't know what day it was, let alone I had a court date. I kept getting re-released. And then, of course, I would do the exact same thing, right? Because I'm just going to be really honest. I didn't want to stop using. Like, that drug had such a powerful hold on me that number one, I didn't want to stop using. Number two, I didn't think that it was possible. I didn't think it was possible for me. I had kind of given up hope at that time.
Wow. I appreciate her honesty, but that's just so sad and so revealing of how strong that grip can be of a drug addiction and how strong that grip can be over someone.
Yeah, she's resigned herself to dying. She's not looking for help, and no one is offering her help. Then it's 2011, and she sees her mugshot in the newspaper. In the picture, she's strung out, mascara smeared. The article says cops are hunting for her, and she panics. People are going to see that photo and could report her. So she goes on the run, but gets arrested and lands in Pine Grove Correctional Center in Prince Albert. So then she's in a jail cell, waiting for her trial. She can't do drugs for the first time in years, and she gets a little bit of counseling.
This was my turning point for a few reasons. I had recently found out I was pregnant, and then I think just being in Pine Grove gave me a chance to get clean enough where I was able to start thinking more clearly, and the realization of all my poor life choices really hit me. It was like, okay, I'm 34, 35 years old, I'm pregnant, I'm in jail, I'm looking at a federal sentence. I didn't think that I could mess up my life much worse, and so the reality of all of that hit me, and I was terrified. I was terrified that I was going to lose this child, that I was going to go and do this federal sentence, and so then I started thinking, what do I need to do to change?
And she's being given a choice.
And I had heard about this drug treatment court program. It was a bit of a carrot that was dangling, like to get out of jail. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose?
Right. So she was basically desperate and I guess willing to try anything and also had a clear mind for the first time in years.
Yeah, but she's honest about the fact that at this point, she's still hoping she can manipulate the system and that it will be a get-out-of-jail-free card. She does not believe the drug treatment court will make any real difference in her life other than possibly keeping her out of jail.
So what exactly is drug treatment court?
Well, it's often called a therapeutic court or problem-solving court. Generally, it gives a person the opportunity to address the underlying issues that cause their criminal behavior. So more bluntly, if the reason you're stealing is to get money to buy drugs, then addressing that addiction and perhaps the root causes behind that addiction, like trauma, for example, that would, in theory, stop you from stealing and get you out of the justice system. The focus is getting people treatment, not putting them behind bars.
Right. And then why was Susan accepted?
Because she's deemed high risk to reoffend and high needs, meaning she needs a more intensive form of treatment program. Drug treatment court won't approve anyone facing charges related to violence, weapons, hurting children, or selling drugs for commercial reasons.
So what does Susan have to do?
Well, first she has to plead guilty. That's the first step, is taking responsibility. But there's a catch. She isn't given a sentence right away. She's given this opportunity to do the treatment program, and if she completes it, then she won't go to jail. But it's a lot. Hundreds of hours of treatment and counseling, everything from anger management to parenting to life skills. There's a curfew, random drug tests, and there's a lot of people involved. Drug court is essentially a team. There's the judge, a court coordinator, prosecutors, probation officers, and a bunch of health workers and community agencies that have signed on to help. Judy Burns is the manager of the Regina Drug Treatment Court, and she remembers Susan's early days in the program.
She was scared. She was unsure about what she was getting into, I think, right? Nobody really knows what drug court is until they're in it. Like, it's hard work changing your life. And imagine changing your entire life with an infant.
Right, yeah. So learning about Susan, though, is just, it's so encouraging, right, that she found this way. But what about people like Susan who are where she was at 20 years ago, right, who are still very much struggling? I see people like Susan every day on my walk to work. And I also know how much crime we're dealing with in the province that's likely related to drug use. We know there's a drug problem, and that leads people to commit crimes, right?
Not just one crime. Some experts say a crime a day.
That's just wild. That's actually really hard to digest. I'm guessing that adding another drug court will attempt to curb that, right? This will be the province's third now?
Correct. The first one opened in Regina in 2006, a second one in Moose Jaw in 2009, and now this third one in North Battleford, an area that's historically had a lot of problems with drug-related crime. So far, since 2006, 156 people have graduated from the drug treatment court in Saskatchewan. And there's a lot of enthusiasm for this program, Leisha, among people in the justice system who are hungry for a chance to do things differently. That's the case for Tamara Rock. She's a federal prosecutor.
The opportunity to say to somebody, I see you as a human being with an illness. I see you as a human being with an addiction and a struggle. And I believe that you can rehabilitate and contribute to society is a wonderful opportunity. I am grateful for that opportunity, and I do not take it for granted. And I believe in therapeutic courts. It's not just a job to me. It's something that I believe will help society.
I hear that. I hear that when she talks, right? That she's so committed to this. But why does she think it will help society?
Well, she's been a prosecutor for 17 years, so she sees a lot of repeat offenders. And she knows how hard it is for people to break free from this cycle of addiction and criminal behavior. Drug court is a chance to make a difference.
The kinds of crimes we're looking at are all under 3-year jail sentences. So they're not the most serious crimes. So those people that you might think, well, they just deserve to be locked away for the bad thing that they did, they will be coming back out into society. And if they're that much more stigmatized, if they've spent that much more time away from regular society or making connections in jail with other people who are into committing crimes, they're going to be that much more difficult to rehabilitate. If you took a 23-year-old offender and you put him in jail for 3 years and he gets none of those wraparound services, none of that support, after 2 or 3 years in jail, you're going to have a 26-year-old person who's going to possibly gravitate back towards the thing that got them into jail in the first place. Imagine if instead you rehabilitated that person and they made connections that they want to maintain, and they want to participate in society. They want to be a good person in their family. They want to be accepted and be seen as a good person by their children. They have a lot more reason to stay on the straight and narrow. It's logical. It's not mysterious.
It does sound like it makes sense, Bonnie, but it must be more complicated than this, right? More challenging than that. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more of them. You said there's been 156 graduates in 20 years, so that's what, an average of about 8 graduates a year, which when you stop and think about it, that's not very many.
Yeah, thanks for doing the math. And yes, you're right. There are more participants than that, but not everyone graduates. Some stay a year, then quit. Some are kicked out. Regina has capacity for 30 people at any given time. Here's Judy Burns again.
The size of the drug court is based on the resources that are available, right? So we have a large group of resources that we can use in the city of Regina. So we can handle more capacity than somewhere like Moose Jaw or North Battleford, for example, right? People apply to come in, and the Crown decides whether they're suitable or not. If all the things fall into place, and there's a lot of things have to fall into place, including housing, and you know there's a housing shortage, right? So trying to get people into housing to get into the program sometimes is a struggle. It depends on so many factors, and that starts with the Crown and ends with a mental health and addictions assessment. Not everybody is suitable for the program because there's other things going on for them that they're not a fit, right? So it's a really extensive assessment piece that we go through because you have to have the right complement of people. Drug courts are designed for a certain set of people, high risk to reoffend, high risk to use people, and then the Crown is looking at public safety.
So Susan obviously was a good fit for this. She was deemed a good fit. But as we heard earlier, she wasn't convinced it would actually make a difference. So what changed her mind?
It was just so different than anything she'd experienced before.
This is a very different court. So I remember one of my first appearances, I had 2 weeks of perfect attendance, 2 weeks of perfect substance-free screens, and the judge really was invested and interested in what I was doing in my spare time. I had started going to the gym at that time, and he was commending me for being healthy, for being a good parent. And then there was a round of applause. So I was like, oh, this is different,
In the courtroom.
In the courtroom, yes. So that was that felt very different from the typical courtroom where you're being scolded or sanctioned or reprimanded for your actions.
A round of applause in the courtroom. I'm assuming it's pretty rare for a judge to clap for someone in court.
Yeah, it's a much different environment. And as you can imagine, I wanted to speak to that judge, and I was able to reach Judge Murray Hines by phone. First, he tells me he's delighted to hear Susan is doing so well. Of his 18 years as a provincial court judge, he says his work in drug treatment court was the most gratifying of his career, and he's really proud of how comprehensive the program is. For example, it now includes cognitive behavior therapy to help people think differently.
Because people that are caught up in addictive lifestyle are also caught up in a criminal lifestyle often. And the criminal lifestyle can be very attractive to people. I mean, it's exciting. There's some risk involved, and there's some reward involved. And so they have to change their thinking on that.
And without that, he says people can be sucked back into a life of crime.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. And what about Susan? What made the difference for her?
It's not just one thing. Remember, at this point, Susan's son is a toddler. He takes his first steps at the courthouse. So as a mother, she needs a lot of support.
I had an amazing probation officer too. We had such a funny relationship. So it was court, it was probations, it was Judy, it was being at the center. It was also the housing. The housing was a huge piece. We had supportive housing. Kate's place, they had 24-hour staff. And as a new again mother, it was nice knowing that if I needed help, I could just open the door and walk down the hallway. So that was a big piece of it as well.
She says for the first time, it felt like people really believed in her, and that all sounds great, right? But of course, life is messy. Given the harsh reality of addiction and poverty and all the social and economic pressures that people face, recovery is not a straight line. And so it's not a zero-tolerance program.
It's not, hey? So how so?
Well, for example, I mentioned the urine tests to screen for drugs. If you are positive, you're not automatically booted out of the program and thrown behind bars as long as you're honest. Honesty is huge. But you're likely to be sent to detox and perhaps a residential treatment program. This is how Prosecutor Tamara Rock explains it.
The person who's coming into the program, they've got a sense of disbelief that this can be offered to them, that they have this much opportunity, that we're saying you're going to get counseling every day, you're going to go to a program every day, you're going to be with other people who are struggling in the same way, and you're going to be supported. They don't believe that someone like them is going to attach and belong. And so the disbelief, in a way, sets them up to fail because they'll often sabotage the opportunity. And they might use again, which is another issue entirely, or they might violate their conditions. They don't immediately get ejected from the program. They have opportunities. As I say, they might have to pay a little bit of a debt to society by going back into the jail system a bit, or they'll come out. They get a more kindness in the courtroom than in any other court. The therapeutic court has an element of understanding and forgiveness and moving forward in a more supportive way for people who really do feel like there's no place for them in society.
So despite that forgiveness, though, you said some people are kicked out of the program or they drop out. So what is the completion rate?
Yeah, that's a good question and not one that has a simple answer. I asked the Ministry of Justice how many people don't complete the program, and it says it doesn't track that. And that is one of the issues with gauging the effectiveness of drug treatment court. The research seems to track graduates, not dropouts. Now, a study next door in Alberta found that between 2016 and 2019, only about half of those admitted to the program graduated. But another problem is some treatment programs are better than others, so it's hard to apply statistics from one drug treatment court to another. Judy Burns, who again manages the Regina program, is very matter-of-fact about measuring success.
Not everybody is successful, no. And that can depend on many factors, including whether they're more criminally addicted or addiction addicted, right? Because there are people that are more addicted to the crime than they are to the drug. So you can deal with the drug issue, but that crime issue is huge. That's why we need that criminal thinking piece. And staying on top of that sometimes can be hard. But that is the purpose of the drug court. Our judge said that today. It's keeping people out of the justice system, right? And I think success can be measured by how long have they stayed drug-free versus how long have they stayed crime-free. And those can be totally different. You can still go out and graduate the program and use marijuana and, do some cocaine on the side if you're able to and but you're not committing crime, right? So how do you measure that? What do you want? Who wants to measure what? It becomes very, smoky, To me it does anyway. Graduation is also not the end-all, be-all. I have many people that have been in this program who may have chosen to leave at some point because they wanted to get to work sooner. It's a long program, right? It's 12 to 18 months or longer, depending on your progress. So they have chosen to leave, and they finished out whatever their sentence was and got to work, and they still are drug-free, and they're doing great, and they credit drug court. So I find it really hard to measure any of that. They're all successes because they tried, in my opinion. They've all tried to change their life.
I guess the other big question, listening to her, is, does it reduce crime, though?
By all accounts, it does indeed reduce crime. One study out of Alberta tracked that one person addicted to drugs can commit one property crime a day to support their habit. So you have to figure if that person spends a year and a half in the program, that's more than 400 fewer crimes and victims. And then if they stay crime-free, countless more crimes prevented. And while the program costs money, it's calculated that it saves money by eliminating all the interactions with police, hospitals, courts, and jails.
And Susan is obviously a success story.
Absolutely. She graduates from the program in 2014, and she's really worried about finding regular employment because she has a criminal record, but she does find a job. First helping high-risk youth in Regina, and then gang members in Prince Albert Penitentiary. And then, when the job of therapeutic courts coordinator comes up in North Battleford, she jumps at it. And no one is prouder than her mentor, Judy Burns.
It makes me very emotional. Like, it's huge, right? This is why I do what I do. This is the end result I want. I want people out there being successful, doing what they want to do. Lots of times they'll credit, oh, Judy, you helped me so much. No, you did the work. This is not easy. Changing everything from who you talk to, who you hang around with, repairing relationships with family, learning how to do things differently with a moral compass. Like, you have to change the way you think. I'm there to guide, but you have to do the work or you wouldn't be successful.
And now it's Susan who meets with offenders. She helps get them into treatment, get a family doctor, housing, get their income taxes done, employment and education, drug tests, court appearances. She guides them through it all. But most importantly, she can speak to them as someone who has been in their shoes.
My parents would say that I'm a miracle. I think understandably they had given up hope on with me. And so they really credit the drug treatment program was saving my life. I definitely credit it with saving my life as well. I don't think that I would be around today, or if I do, my life would look very differently. My son has never seen the unhealthy version of me, so that's a huge success. I never thought I would have a career. Now I'm sitting here today, full circle, being able to help people that were once in the same position as me.
Yeah, and that's a vast difference from a jail cell.
No kidding, Bonnie. What a story. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If you have thoughts on this story, we would love to hear from you. Email us at thisisk@cbc.ca. And do us a favor, make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. I'm Leisha Grabinski. Thanks to Nicole Huck, Stephen Adams, and we'll talk to you next week.